Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gaming Fool. And I know it's been a while. It's been about 2 months since I posted a video. I did actually post video about a month and a half ago, but it was removed due to some of the sounds that I thought I was able to use. Unfortunately, I was not able to use them, so I had to take that video down before I got hit with a strike. And outside of that, I've also been working on my Twitch channel and my Discord. So that's part of the reason why I haven't been making YouTube videos as often as I would have liked. But now, I'm finally getting myself back into my new house and my new setup. And I'm actually really looking forward to what we plan on doing together in the next year. So today's video, we're going to be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! This is basically my first deck profile that I've ever done, but I'm really proud of this deck. I've been working on it for a long time. I've loved Necroface ever since I've seen it, and it's been my favorite deck, so I'm happy that it's actually at 3, and it has way more support than it did than when I had stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And a lot of people that I've been recently meeting online, they have been very interested in my deck, and so I figured, I'd make a quick deck profile on how my deck works and why I put some of the cards that I did together, and let's check it out. Okay, so here we have a 60 card deck, and there is a reason why I specifically run this deck at 60 cards, and that is because the deck burns itself very quickly, and I'll get into that as I start to explain it. But basically, just know it's a 60 card deck. It's also a link deck. I really never use those XYZs unless I'm forced in a situation where I absolutely have to, or in some cases where it's an extreme benefit, which is very rarely. But anyway, we're gonna start off with my first 3 monsters. We have Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, and he's just a really good card because my deck is a chaos zombie deck. So I do get a lot of light and dark monsters into the graveyard from my links and monsters. So it makes it very easy for him to be special summoned. And then if he goes to the graveyard, of course, he can banish himself and special summon himself. So that's the reason why I used him. And there's also more reasons, but we'll get into that later. I also use Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End. And this card, I never really use him for his secondary effect, though. Once per turn you can pay 1000 life points to send as many cards in both your hands and on the field as possible to the graveyard. I don't really use that effect, very rarely. The reason why I actually use him is specifically to banish Necroface, and that's pretty much it. And the same pretty much goes with Envoy of the Beginning, and there's another card which I'm sure you guys might know by the time we end up getting to it. And this card right here is the heart of the card, or the heart of the card, the heart of the deck. This is Gizmek, and of course his effect is I can banish 8 cards from the top of my deck to special summon him to the field. And without this card, this deck really would not function quite the same without him. This card is very important for this deck survival. He just helps set up a lot of my links. He helps destroy monsters. He helps banish cards. There's just so many things that this card can do. He's got respectable attack and defense. He's really an amazing card, and he's one of my most used cards throughout the whole game. Dark Armed Dragon. I'm sure you guys all know Dark Armed, but Dark Armed specifically, I use him to banish Necroface, or sometimes I get so many dark monsters on the field, I special summon him, destroy some cards, and then I immediately use him for link summon. And his effects to me come in extremely, and sometimes they come into the most extremely needs, like when I need to destroy spell and trap cards or face down cards in the field. He's just clutch sometimes. Now, Zombie Master. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are thinking, oh wow, I remember that card, but this card right here is actually super important, or not super important, because this deck is really weird. So since I run 60 cards, there are certain times in this deck where my Chaos soldiers are literally useless, and my zombies over here are literally a million times more useful than they are. And then sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes the zombies are completely useless, and the Chaos is where my deck goes. You just have to be able to know how to use the deck. It's a little bit complicated, but once you start to play with it for a while, you'll start to get the hang of it. And I use Dark Riffer. Dark Riffer, it makes it to where I can get Gizmek out of the deck. Especially it being a 60 card deck, you want to be able to rip Gizmek out as fast as possible because you want to start banishing those cards as quickly as possible. The name of the game in this deck is to banish cards, banish cards, banish cards. So, also another one of his good plays that I just absolutely love doing is if you do have, let's say, the Black Chaos or the Envoy of the End, the Chaos Dragon, you can discard him to special summon him, and then or discard Gizmek to special summon him, and then banish 8 to special summon Gizmek, or lots of different plays that you can use to start getting yourself set up for your crucial plays. And then we have one Gozuki. Gozuki is one of these cards that's like super good, but like very situational. Sometimes he could be really, really good. Sometimes he could be really, really bad. His main purpose is to get some of the core cards out of the deck. For example, like Mizuki, which I only run 2 of Mizukis and 1 Gozuki. I also use him to send out Necroface. Sometimes I use him to send out Goblin Zombie. I just use him to send to the graveyard whatever I need in that exact moment in time. And then we have Shootin' Dochi. Now, this deck would not also function without this card right here. This card is literally one of the key cards to the deck. He is a partial draw engine. He's not the key to my draw engine, but there are very many situations where he finds himself back on the field banishing zombies to help me draw a card. And sometimes he finds himself being special summoned right next to Vampire Sucker, which is also amazing because that basically means I get to draw 2 cards and I have a link of 3. So also one of his secondary effects, which I just absolutely love, and it's the one that's saved me in numerous amounts of duels. His effect that he can put a banished card at the top of the deck. So sometimes, like, even if I don't have Necroface to put at the top of the deck, he helps me put the cards, just keeping myself afloat in case I start to get to really low numbers or I need extra cards on top of the deck, a specific one. One of my favorite plays with him to do is to put Necroface at the top and then play Lure of Darkness, draw my 2 cards, and then banish Necro. And then another one of my favorite plays is to put like Necroface at the top of the deck and then send him to the graveyard, bring him back, and then banish 2 zombies, and then draw the Necroface, and then summon the Necroface, and then put all the cards back into the deck, and then, you know, I can go anywhere from that moment. Armageddon Knight, again, literally his sole purpose, he only has one purpose, and that's to bring Gizmek out of the deck. Once Gizmek is out of the deck and on the field, literally these cards are pointless, these 2 cards, for the most part. But without them, the deck wouldn't work, so you have to have them, especially Armageddon Knight. He comes in clutch when you want to send Necroface to the deck, or to the graveyard as well, in case you already have a Gizmek out. It just makes it a lot easier to set up for your Chaos soldiers. And finally, not finally, but next we have Kage to Kage. I run 2 of them. 2 Kage to Kages because, well, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over the main one, but I feel like I skipped it because I said it so many times. But yes, we run 3 Necrofaces. That's the key to the deck. This is the card that makes sure that I don't die. I don't know if you guys know his effect already, but if he's banished, banish 5 cards from the top of your deck and your opponent's deck. And if he's normal summoned, put all of the cards back that are banished in each other's decks back into the deck and gain 100 for each attack. That go back to the main deck. So I feel like Necroface is the king of chaos, so that's why he has to be in the deck. And I literally made the deck because of him. And then we have Kage to Kage. Kage to Kage is super important for one reason and one reason only. For example, if I get Armageddon Knight and I get Kage to Kage, I can normal summon the Armageddon Knight, special send Gizmek to the graveyard, banish 8 cards from the top of my deck, special summon the Gizmek, special summon the Kage to Kage, link the two monsters together to summon Union Carrier, and then I can Union Carrier basically whatever I want out of my deck, any one of my dark monsters, which starts to become super crucial, and into another effect that I'll talk about later. Goblin Zombie is another one of those situational cards that's like super good, but it really only depends on this. If Zombie Master is in your hand with Mizuki and Goblin Zombie is in the graveyard, you have an amazing play. But if the situation is not that, there's pretty much, it's hard to make plays with the Goblin Zombie. But when you do start to set up those plays and the Goblin Zombie is special summoned, you get to add a zombie monster from your deck to your hand every time you link summon a monster. Can't underestimate that draw engine. It's also a subpar draw engine, but it's a draw engine nonetheless. And then we have Ash Blossom of Joyous Spring. We run 2 of these specifically to obviously negate card effects. I don't think I really need to explain this card. It's just really good at negating effects that are good at stopping your opponent. And then of course we run 3 Grenmachu. This is another card that I feel like I don't really need to explain. I gain 400 attack for each banished card. This is basically my win card. As soon as I feel like I have the clear opening to attack my opponent, when I have 44 cards banished, he attacks with ridiculous amounts of attack. The most I've ever done with him was 22,500. He's just an amazing card and comes in the most crucial moments, but you have to be careful about the way you use him. You only get 1 shot, and he is checked pretty easily because a lot of people expect, once they start seeing all the cards to be banished, they just expect a Grenmachu. So sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to get that thing destroyed or to get that thing played. So you got to be really careful with the Grenmachus. And then Ventred Core. I literally run this card because he can special summon himself while banishing a zombie monster. My favorite play to do is to banish Necroface to special summon Core. And yeah, special summon Core to the field, and that's an additional link summon, or material for a link rather. And then Effect Veiler. I literally only run Effect Veiler because it's a light monster that I can discard from my hand. It just has a bonus effect that I can negate people's effects. So Effect Veiler literally sole purpose is to help me set up these Chaos Soldiers. And that's it. Literally, that's it. The negating effect is just a bonus. Eater of the Millions. I run this card at 3. I specifically run this card at 3 because I need sometimes to match typings to help summon the Union Carrier. The Union Carrier is super important to this deck as well because you're not always going to get Armageddon Knight and you're not always going to get Dark Grepher, but we'll talk about that in a second. And also Eater Million's effect is really good when he can banish a card face down. It shuts a lot of cards down, especially once Red Eyes Dragoon uses its effect. Eater of the Millions just takes that thing out like nothing. And then finally we're moving on to the spell cards. We have Allure of Darkness. I feel like this is a no-brainer. Draw 2 cards to banish a dark monster. This card isn't just for Necroface. This card has literally saved me multiple times. I only run it at 2 because when I used to run it at 3, I found myself not wanting to banish some of the cards that I had in my hand. So I put it down to 2, and I found it to be a little bit more consistent. And then we have Soul Release. And Soul Release, oh man, I love this card. Such a beautiful card. Just banish 5 cards from the graveyard, but sometimes it's so much deeper than that. I could banish Necroface, and other spell cards that I need, and then summon Necroface and put everything back into the deck. Sometimes I'll use Soul Release to gain life points. Soul Release is used for so many different reasons. Can be used to shut your opponent down who activates card effects from the graveyard. It's just an amazing card. It's a really, really amazing card. And then Harpy's Feather Duster. I don't really think I need to go into that. Destroy all spells and trap cards. Primal Seed. This card right here is really, really important. And I do run it at 3 because it's super easy to use them. So I want to go into detail on how to use this card because this card right here is really, really saved me many times in a beautiful way. So if I manage to summon the Dark Grepher and banish those 8 cards from the top of the deck, and then I play the next card, Pot of Desires, which lets me banish 10 cards from the top of my deck to draw 2 cards. I have 18 cards that are banished at that point. And that's just assuming, you know, I mean, that's all I had done. This is my first turn. And if when I activate Primal Seed, because Gizmek's effect banishes the cards face down, I can't really ever access those cards. But Primal Seed lets me bypass that little negative effect and allows me to get any 2 banished cards that I want. So the best play that I've ever done with Primal Seed was I Primal Seeded into Pot of Desires, and then I played Pot of Desires and played drew my 2 cards and played Primal Seed, and then I got Primal Seed and Soul Release, and then I play Soul Release to banish Primal Seed and Primal Seed, and then when those 2 Primal Seeds are banished, I can play Primal Seed to get Primal Seed and Gold Sarcophagus or Soul Absorption, or literally any card that you need in that situation, whatever you need in the whole freaking deck, because of how fast it banishes. It's all there, added directly to your hand, and you get to pick 2 of them 3 times, and it's amazing. It's this card right here, and then sometimes, like, I'm sure you're like, you don't even have enough light monsters in this deck to make that really work. Well, my link monsters are super easy to summon, and it is super easy to rip them out into the field. And the Union Carrier, and I know I'm jumping over to the links, but he's such an important card to the deck, because if you use the Union Carrier's effect on himself, you can equip Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, to him. And when the Blackluster Soldier is equipped to the Union Carrier, you can activate Primal Seed, because if you look closely at Primal Seed's effect, you'll realize that Blackluster Soldier just needs to be on the field. It doesn't need to be in the monster zone. He just needs to be faced up on the field. Doesn't matter if he's equipped or not. And so he is, so Primal Seed can work. And that is the only way that Primal Seed can work. Now, Pot of Extravagance, I can't think of anything better to put for drawing power other than this card. I actually really dislike this card for this deck. It's a great card, don't get me wrong, but it's very important that you have your link monsters in this deck. And the thing I don't like about Pot of Extravagance is if it banishes some of the cards that you need, it may actually end up hurting you in the long run. For example, if Union Carrier was to get banished from Pot of Extravagance, you now have lost your access to Primal Seed and all of your other key cards, and that's really, really bad. But with that being said, more often than not, Necroface will be in your hand, or you're able to get Necroface back into your hand and then shuffle it and get all of those cards back into your deck anyway. But sometimes that's just not the case, and then you're crap out of luck without any link monsters. Gold Sarcophagus. This card is specifically only for Necroface. If you get this card, play it as fast as possible. You want Necroface to be coming back to your hand ASAP. When you know that Necroface is coming back in your hand, you can go crazy with the amount of banishing cards that you do, because this card could really banish itself to death really fast, so you have to be limited on what you do. Now, if I know that Necroface is coming back to my hand in 2 turns, I'm banishing like crazy, because it's just going to help me in the long run, help setting me up with my Grand Majus and my link monsters and all that stuff. And then we have Foolish Burial. This is specifically for Gizmek, and if Gizmek is already on the field, then it's for Necroface or Mizuki, and occasionally the core. But if it's not any of those cards, it's kind of a dead card. It's only really good usually in the beginning. Sometimes it starts to become a little bit heavier if you draw it late game, but it's still, you have to run this card because you need Gizmek in the graveyard. Monster Reborn, I don't think I need to explain that. Burial from a Different Dimension. This card lets me add 3 cards that are banished back into the deck, or back into the graveyard, which is phenomenal with this deck, especially putting back core. Necroface and Gizmek, which I've done. So I'll be able to banish 8 cards from the top of my deck to special summon Gizmek, banish Necroface to special summon the core, and these banishing Necrofaces come in really, really clutch with this card, which I'm going to jump over to it. Every time a monster is banished faced up, add tokens to this card, and then it allows me to special summon monsters from my banished zone equal to the number of tokens that I remove, but it has to be 4 minimum. And then if the card is destroyed, I can add spell cards, or I'm sorry, monster cards whose level are equal to the number of tokens that are removed off of this card. So sometimes I'll use it to ban after I banish Necroface with the core, the special summon Necroface. I'll use and then banish the top 5, use Chaos Zone to special summon Necroface right back onto the field, link it, send it to the graveyard, and then maybe use Blackluster Soldier to banish Necroface again, and then another light card that you could get into the graveyard, and then of course that's another 5 cards. And then there are even other cards too that can help with that, like if you after you did that, you played Primal Seed because you just drew your Blackluster Soldier, and then you're able to get Necroface and Allure of Darkness, and then you play Allure of Darkness and of course draw your 2 cards and banish Necroface, and that was essentially free, and your opponent has to banish another 5 cards off of the top of their decks, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of fun. It's not the most meta deck, it loses quite honestly, but on Dueling Nexus I made it to Diamond with it, so, and I still think that I can do better. It's just that I just been testing it out to make sure that I'm working out all the kinks before I start going crazy onto the ranked, because I did have another deck version of this and it ended up like having to be scouted out, like it just didn't work. But anyway, so Burial from a Different Dimension helps sets up a lot of different plays in the deck. And then Soul Absorption, I run these at 3. This card gains 500 life points for each banished card, and let me tell you, you will be banishing cards. The most life points I've ever had at one point was like 63,000. It was just ludicrous, and my opponent was waiting for me to deck out, and then I played Necroface, and then I got all my cards back into the deck, and he just felt extremely overwhelmed by the thousands of life points. And even if they do manage to wipe out all of your cards and start to set up all of these crazy things, you actually sometimes have enough time to just take a beating from these guys and still draw a hand, so that way you could keep fighting. It's kind of crazy, and it's very satisfying when it actually happens. Especially like if you if you start the hand off with Necroface and Eater of the Millions and Soul Absorption, I banish all 15 cards, and then I get like 8,000 life points or whatever it is, and then summon Necroface, and then put all of those cards right back into the deck, and then link those 2 cards to special summon the Union Carrier and equip Gizmek to it, and it works extremely well. That pretty much wraps up the main deck. I just have 3 cards left. We have Evenly Matched. This card is really good because sometimes you can't do anything, and when you can't do anything, it's horrible. So when you have this card in your hand, when you can't do anything, it feels like the oasis in the desert. It feels like you have a fighting chance to actually do something, so that way you're not just getting your butt beat. You can play this card directly from your hand if you don't have any cards on your side of the field, which is amazing. And you can also do it during your opponent's turn at the end of the battle phase, so it's really hard for them to see it coming. But I'm going to start on the side with the links, because these XYZs really don't matter, and you can actually kind of replace them with whatever you want. I just think that they are very useful. Just 1 second, sorry about that, guys. Oh, okay, there we go. All right, so we have Union Carrier. Of course, Union Carrier is super important to this deck. You can't run this deck without it. I'm actually considering taking out one of these XYZs to replace it with another Union Carrier, and maybe running 2 of them just in case I lose my one. but sometimes Union Carrier also can be slow because you can't link Union Carrier after you've made your made it, because it can't be linked that turn. So you have to wait a whole turn in order to be able to activate Gizmek's effect, which could be kind of bad. Proglio, I actually run this card in case I can sometimes get one of my banished cards, or I just use it to special summon and then link it with another card, so that way I can send a light monster to the graveyard and he counts as a link of 2. The Witch's Apprentice. Oh man, she's so cool. So she helps all my dark monsters gain 500 attack, and when she's destroyed, she lets me add a dark monster from my graveyard to my hand. So sometimes she actually, with that effect, comes in very helpful, but for the most part I just use her for a link of 2, and then use other links to attach because of her arrows are beautifully positioned, and she's super easy to summon, just 2 dark monsters. And then we have this card, also the Earth Charmer, which also has saved me very many times. He goes really good with like my Gozuki, my Mizuki, or Shootin' Doji, and then Gizmek, because they're typings, and he's actually saved me a duel before because I was able to get my unicorn and put the card back into the deck to special summon my Topologic and won the duel. Chimera Phoenix. This card is super good because he can destroy a spell or a trap card, and if he's a co-linked, he can draw a card. But really, I just use him for his effect of being able to destroy a spell card and a trap card and discarding a card from my hand. Sometimes it's really awesome when you destroy a spell or a trap card and discard Mizuki. It just feels like a win-win, because I never really want to summon Mizuki anyway. And then we have Troymere Unicorn. This card right here is also super clutch. Just put a link of 3, discard a card from your hand and put a card back into the deck. And then if he's also co-linked, you can draw an additional card. It's super easy to use these cards to summon all of these cards. It's super easy. Topologic Trishbania, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but this card specifically is used to destroy spell and trap cards. I don't even care about any of its other effects, like the inflicting damage or anything like that. Sometimes it's very plausible for me to get him back onto the field without it's really easy to get him to the field and then to be able to banish cards to special summon to destroy all of the spells and trap cards, and it can be really overwhelming to your opponent, especially if they're using like Edelich decks and they expect you to destroy them and then they end up getting banished instead. It's way more overwhelming. And then Blackluster Soldier, the Chaos Warrior. This card can come in super handy, especially with some of the dumbest monsters to make it. I would use the Vendread Core, banish Necroface to special summon himself to get Gizmek, to then maybe summon the Zombie Master, discard Mizuki to special summon something else, and then link 3 of them to special summon the Chaos, the Blackluster Soldier of Chaos, and then of course now you have a light and dark monster in your hand, so you can play the Envoy of Chaos, and it's just really, really cool. And with his effect, because Gizmek is level 7 and all of my cards are level 7, this card cannot be destroyed or targeted by card effect. So, I believe it can't. Yeah, you can't target it with card effects. So it actually is a really, really great card, and it's really good at shutting your opponent down. And then Borreload Dragon. Borreload Dragon actually can be summoned pretty easily, although I don't really rely on this card. I look at it as to be very situational, and I usually find him to be banished right away with Eater of the Millions effect. And then finally, we have Topologic Zeroboros rather. And this card right here is one of my win condition cards too. Just amazing when you have like 40 cards banished and you special summon this card and your opponent has nothing that they could do about it. You already used the effect of maybe putting their cards back into their decks and destroying all of their spells and trap cards, and then finally you link into this guy and then you can attack directly for 10,000 and win the game right there. And then also you can end if your opponent has an amazing field, I would end my turn, and then as soon as they draw, during the end of their draw phase, I would banish my Gizmek to special summon Gizmek, and then banish every single thing that they have on the field. It's like a Black Rose Dragon, but banishing. So much more brutal, so much more cool for my deck, but it does also affect me, so I will lose my Gizmek in the process. So you got to be very, very careful about doing that. If you misplay that card and banish it, banish the Gizmek, and then end up getting this card getting destroyed, you are probably going to lose, because you can't afford to redraw all those cards that you lost to get this card in the first place. And then I run Evil Swarm Extinction Knight because 1, he's light, and 2, Kage to Kage, in case I don't have the 2 dark monsters that I need. He makes a really good, basically, he forces the opponent to want to destroy him, so that way, you know, his effect doesn't go off during the battle phase. He usually gets KO'd right away, and because he's a light monster, I can banish him from the deck to the graveyard, or from the graveyard to the banish zone for my Chaos Soldiers. And then we have Heartland Draco. The reason why I use this card is because you are sometimes in situations where you're slowly beating each other down and they have less than 2,000 life points, and you can jump right over with this card, especially because Chaos Zone and Soul Absorption are 2 continuous cards. You can't even be targeted by card effects. He has been very situational, but he has helped me win duels. I don't think I'll ever take this card out just because he's super situational. And then Honor Arc is another one of those situational cards. It's super good at just stopping some of your opponent's key cards if it can manage to get it. I can't really say anything else about Honor Arc. And then we have the Dark Rebellion Dragon, who's also helped me win a duel, by just, you know, being able to take monsters attack and attack another weaker monster with that attack and end up winning the game. So there you have it. Oh, well, I guess not yet. We're gonna get into the extra deck. My extra deck is not completed yet, and I'm gonna remove these 2 cards because they're not even supposed to be there. We're just testing those cards out. And for the side deck, we have Raigeki. The reason why I run Raigeki is for decks that run those monsters effects that say this card cannot be special summoned. That really shuts my deck down. I also run Lightning Storm for that exact reason, just to destroy monsters. And then I run a Dark Ruler No More at 3, because if you're going up against decks that use like True Kings of Calamities or Red Dragon of Dragoons or whatever, any card effect that negates effects while on the field, this card right here does a really, really good job at shutting it down, so that way you can reach over some of those powerful monsters. And then I run 3 Twin Twisters, because Twin Twister is a really, really good card when it comes to stopping Mystic Mind decks or any other deck that really, really relies on continuous spell or trap cards. I cite it because I don't really always need it. I find it to be very situational. I think Heartbeat's Feather Duster really is enough, and the same thing with my Phoenix and thing, unless, you know, of course, I go up against Mystic Mine or something like that and those card effects are negated. Well, then, of course, Twin Twisters becomes a better option. And then also, it's super easy to side out, because if I do go up against those types of decks, they usually almost never attack. So I take out all of my Soul Absorptions and just replace them with Twin Twisters. And then, of course, I replace my Chaos Zones with my Mystic Mines. Sometimes I really only use the 2. I have the 3rd one just in case. I mean, you guys know Yu-Gi-Oh! There's some people who run some pretty interesting things. So Mystic Mine sometimes can be useful at 3, but I usually find myself using only the 2. But there you have it. That is my Chaos Zombie build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, you guys all have a great day. Thank you.